Imagine it's October 1983. Halloween decorations fill department store aisles. Video stores are overflowing with monsters, slashers, and supernatural thrills. Hip-hop is still in its infancy, finding its identity one block party, one turntable, and one 12-inch single at a time. Now imagine walking into your local record store. You expect to find rock music for Halloween, novelty records, monster sound effects, maybe Bobby Boris Pickett, maybe Screamin' Jay Hawkins, but instead, you discover a rap record. A rap record about a haunted house filled with classic movie monsters, ghosts, creaking doors, and enough spooky atmosphere to earn a permanent place on Halloween playlists for more than 40 years. On this episode, we're opening the very first file in the newly minted Preserve Halloween archive. I am Gregory Hallows, and this is Preserve Halloween Podcast. So, welcome to the very first archive spotlight where we not only preserve the artifacts of Halloween, but the stories that keep them alive. And on this episode, we're preserving one of the most unique Halloween songs ever recorded, Whodini's The Haunted House of Rock. So, when most people think about Halloween music, their minds immediately jump to familiar classics. Monster Mash, Purple People Eater, Haunted House, Ghostbusters, Thriller. Those songs deserve every bit of praise they receive, but as we all know, Halloween's soundtrack is much larger than those handful of familiar titles. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of recordings that have become part of the season. Some were chart-topping hits, others quietly disappeared into record collections, only to be rediscovered decades later by collectors and Halloween enthusiasts like us. And one of these songs is today's archive entry. If you've ever watched the 1986 film Trick or Treat, you may have heard this during the Halloween dance scene and not realize what you're listening to. If you grew up with early hip-hop, you may remember this song from its original release. I have it on vinyl. Or you may have never heard it at all or have no idea what I'm talking about. But that's exactly why this episode exists. Because preserving Halloween isn't only about celebrating the famous. It's also about remembering the overlooked. So, before we can understand the Haunted House of Rock, we need to understand Whodini as the group. The early 80s were an exciting time for hip-hop. The genre was exploding with creativity. Artists weren't following an established formula because they didn't have one. Everyone was experimenting, different sounds, different production, different ideas. And Whodini emerged from Brooklyn during this incredibly creative period. The group featured Jaleel Hutchins and John Ecstasy Fletcher as the performers. They were joined by DJ Drew Carter, better known as Grandmaster D, for live performances and their developing stage identity. And rather than relying solely on hard-edged rhythms or party rhymes, they blended elements of funk and R&B, electronic music, and most importantly, storytelling. And that willingness to experiment would become one of their defining characteristics. So over the next several years, they would become known for songs like Friends, 5 Minutes of Funk, and probably most famously, Freaks Come Out at Night. But before any of those became staples of old school hip hop, there was this record that arrived just in time for Halloween. And one of the interesting parts of this story is where this was recorded. Nowadays, it's very common for artists to record anywhere in the world, right? Plus, we have the internet, we have all these things. But in 1983, that was not nearly as common, especially for an American hip-hop group. Whodini signed with the British label Jive Records, and instead of simply recording another independent rap record in New York, they flew to London to record their debut album. And this decision would shape everything that followed. Unlike many rap records of the era, they had access to state-of-the-art recording equipment, including one instrument that would help define the album's futuristic sound, and that would be a Fairlight synthesizer. Many hip hop recordings of the time were being made quickly and economically. People were using what they had, right? But Whodini found themselves surrounded by technology that very few artists had the opportunity to use. And you can hear that in the record, even today. So there's an atmosphere surrounding the Haunted House of Rock that feels larger than life. The keyboards, the electronic textures, the eerie sounds, everything feels cinematic. And it's almost like you're listening to a Halloween movie through your headphones. And that's a lot of fun, right? So another interesting piece of the story is the production itself. The research that I have found surrounding the song, oftentimes there's different production credits, right? But the album consistently identifies the production team known as the Willesden Dodgers. The Willesden Dodgers. Nigel Green, Pete Q. Harris, and Richard John Smith. These were the producers behind the Haunted House of Rock. They also played key roles in mixing and shaping the song's distinctive sound. And that combination proved to be a perfect match. And instead of treating hip-hop as something completely separate, the production embraced electronic textures, rock influences, dance music, and theatrical sound design. Very ambitious, but most importantly, it was a lot of fun. So how do you make a Halloween rap song? There was no blueprint at the time, right? Halloween music wasn't a new idea by 1983. It'd been around since, the 50s, but novelty records had been entertaining listeners for decades. Haunted sound effect albums had become annual favorites. Horror hosts, television specials, monster movies, those all had their own recognizable musical identity. But hip-hop, that was something different. Rap music was still defining what it could become. There was not a rule book. There was not a formula. And because of there not being a formula, these artists had freedom to do pretty much whatever they want and experiment. So Whodini didn't simply write a rap song about Halloween. They built an experience. And instead of focusing on one monster or one spooky story, they imagined something bigger. They imagined the haunted house, where every famous creature of the supernatural had received an invitation. Come on in. It's less like watching a horror movie and more like walking into the greatest monster party ever thrown. And that's one of the reasons why this song still feels fresh today. It's not trying to scare you. It's inviting you inside. And one of the questions listeners might ask is, why isn't this song called The Haunted House of Rap, right? That's a fair question. The answer tells you a lot about where hip-hop was in 1983. Now we consider rock and rap and pop and country all completely separate, right? But back then, the lines weren't so clear. Early hip-hop artists often viewed themselves as the part of the larger evolution of rock and roll. And rock and roll itself grew from rhythm and blues and was created by black musicians way earlier. So something called rock wasn't necessarily described as, a guitar. And sometimes it simply meant exciting music that moved people, music that made people dance. This song came out just 1 year after Africa Bambaataa released Planet Rock, and it was 2 years before Run DMC would proclaim themselves the king of rock. So if you look at it through that lens, the lens of history, which we don't always get to do, the title made perfect sense. It wasn't avoiding calling itself rap. It was embracing the broader musical movement that hip hop saw itself involved with. So let's talk about what we actually hear, because this song, before there's even a word spoken, the song's already catches you. It starts with atmosphere, dark synthesizers, electronic textures, spooky effects, all things I absolutely love. And the feeling that you've just stepped onto the front porch of a house that everyone has already decided they were not going to enter. And as the record unfolds, doors creak, ghastly sounds drift through the mix. The production constantly reminds you where you are. And this isn't simply background decoration. This is storytelling. The haunted house is another character in the story. The effects are never overwhelming. Instead, they're sprinkled throughout just enough to keep the listeners immersed in the setting. Now, you have to consider the technology that was available back then. This is 1983, right? They're not relying on expensive orchestras, cinematic soundtracks. It's simply your imagination. And sometimes, as we all know, imagination is the most powerful special effect. We'll be right back after this quick break. I am Gregory Hallows, your voice behind the Preserve Halloween podcast and founder of the Halloween Preservation Society. Halloween is more than a holiday. It's history, folklore, and a tradition worth protecting. If you love the stories, the research, and the deep dives into Halloween I bring you, please consider supporting the Preserve Halloween podcast. Your support can help me with more research opportunities, including travel to locations relevant to Halloween history, and to bring you even more insight into the world's greatest holiday. Every one of your contributions, no matter the amount, helps keep the jack-o'-lantern glowing just a little bit longer. So support the show if you can, help me preserve the past, and keep Halloween history alive for generations to come. Check the links in the show description to find out more. And thank you. And now, back to the podcast. Of all. So, one of the best things about this record is the attitude. The monsters aren't treated as villains. They're just guests. Everyone seems to have shown up. There's classic movie monsters, urban legends, supernatural figures, each making an appearance as if this haunted house is the hottest party in existence. And on Halloween, it probably is. So instead of creating fear, this song celebrates Halloween. And that's a very important distinction. Halloween, for a lot of people, has always lived comfortably between horror and fun, between ghosts and candy, haunted houses, neighborhood parties. And the Haunted House of Rock understands that balance very well. They embrace spooky imagery without becoming too grim. It's playful, it's creative, and it's unmistakably Halloween. So even listeners who have never celebrated Halloween this same way can immediately recognize the atmosphere. And that's very hard to accomplish, especially in an audio-only component. But Whodini does a great job. So this song is on Whodini's debut album. That's another very important thing to point out. There was an early single before this. This is the second single from the album. The first single was called Magic's Wand. And Jive Records, like we said before, released this album on October 13th, 1983. So, and the album was not a success, right? It didn't reach the charts, but their singles found their audience. Magic's Wand hit the dance charts, and the Haunted House of Rock charted. It highest charting location was number 27 on the Dance Club Songs chart and number 55 on the Hot R&B and Hip Hop Songs chart. And those aren't like just amazing accomplishments, right? But it doesn't matter where a song charts necessarily. It's the impact it has. So the legacy of a recording, to me, isn't completely measured on how high it charted on a song chart. It's measured by how long people remember it. And 40 years later, we are still talking about this song. People are still buying the 12-inch. Halloween fans still add it to their playlists. And listeners are still continuing to discover this song for the very first time. There's still people that have never heard the song. And that's longevity no chart can measure, right? So, and here's another thing about this song that collectors like. The 12-inch included 4 different mixes. There was an extended version, a haunted mix, the vocoder version, and then there was an acapella. And So this song was not treated like just a disposable novelty thing. Uh, there was versions made for dance floors. There was versions made for DJs, and there was versions made for, just collectors in general. So Whodini and Jive believed this record deserved attention outside of Halloween, right? And one of the best things about Halloween culture is that nothing completely disappears. It's waiting for someone to discover it, or it's waiting for the next October. And that's what happened with Haunted House of Rock. After its release, 3 years later, a whole new audience discovered the song because it was included in the 1986 horror film Trick or Treat. And if you've seen that movie, you remember the scene during the Halloween dance at Lake Ridge High School, rock music filling the gym, teenagers are dancing, Halloween decorations everywhere. And then all of a sudden, you hear Whodini. And it's not, a very long segment. It doesn't last long in the film, but it's there. And it becomes another part of Halloween history and a part of horror history. And it again reminds us that Halloween is not just the obvious. Sometimes it's the overlooked. Sometimes it's the little things. It's the decoration hanging in the background. It's a costume that an extra wore that, people still use as their Halloween costume. It's a song that plays for just a few seconds in a movie. Those details become memories, and those memories become nostalgia. And for many fans, Trick or Treat was their introduction to Whodini. And for many others, it was the reason why they were like, hey, I got to have this. Like, I want to go buy this album. And that's the thing about Halloween music is every year it's resurrected, October, September, whenever you start listening. I mean, a lot of us do it all year, but whenever a lot of people start listening to Halloween music, all these songs come back. But not only did this song, resurrect itself every Halloween season, it also got sampled by some of my favorite artists, DJ Shadow, Norman Cook, Hideki Naganuma. Well into the 2020s, this song was being used to make other songs. Pieces of this record keep finding new audiences in different music genres. And that's a very humongous compliment for any recording, is the fact that musicians don't sample records they forget. They sample records that inspired them, or something they remember as a kid, or something that they heard as a kid. And that's what happened here. They sampled the sounds, they sampled the vocals, and made electronic music, more hip hop, video game music, all of that, all from a novelty rap record from 1983. That's a pretty good legacy for a song, right? And so why does this song still work, and why does it still get played? Music changes, production styles change, technology changes, and Halloween itself has changed over the years. So why do people still pull this song onto their playlists now? And it's because it's a song that gets it. It's a song that is what Halloween is supposed to feel like. It's not super frightening. It's not, overtly funny or humorous. It's imaginative. It creates a world. And you're not just hearing about a haunted house, you're visiting it in your mind. The story is told so well. Every monster is welcome. Every hallway promises another surprise. Every sound effect invites you to look around one more corner. That's very good storytelling. So whether you're listening to the song on vinyl or on cassette, which, I mean, God love you if you still are listening to cassettes, CDs, streaming it on your phone, all of that doesn't matter. The invitation is the same. Come inside. The party's already started. All your favorite people are here, and all your favorite monsters are here. And it represents a moment in history when hip-hop was still discovering what it could become. There weren't expectations. There weren't formulas. These artists experimented. Some of the ideas worked. Some of them didn't. But every experiment helps move the genre forward. It's like science, right? Whodini didn't have to make a Halloween record. No one was asking for it. There wasn't really a trend for it, but they wanted to do it. And sometimes that's exactly what preservation is all about. It's recognizing the moments when artists took a chance, because those chances often become history. So from now on, with this new path that I'm taking, I'm treating everything like a museum. I'm trying to archive things. I'm trying to keep a record, because I'm not going to be around forever. I want all this stuff that I'm talking about to live on for someone else to carry the torch and continue this love of Halloween. So every archive spotlight will end with one question: why does this particular artifact deserve to be preserved? And for the Haunted House of Rock, it's a surprisingly easy answer. This record reminds us that Halloween belongs to everyone. It belongs to rock musicians. It belongs to jazz musicians, novelty performers, film composers, television producers, decoration companies, costume designers, and yes, hip-hop pioneers as well. When Whodini released The Haunted House of Rock in 1983, they weren't simply making a rap record. They were adding an entirely new voice to Halloween's soundtrack, a voice that still echoes every October, a voice that proved that Halloween could evolve while still honoring the traditions that came before it. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson that this record teaches us. Halloween never stands still. Every generation leaves something behind for us to discover: a mask, a decoration, a costume, a candy wrapper, a television special, a movie, or, in this case, a 12-inch record about monsters gathering in a haunted house for the biggest party of the year. And those things matter, not because they're expensive, not because they're famous, but because they're pieces of Halloween's ever-evolving story. And if we don't preserve these stories, eventually they are forgotten. That's why this record has earned its place here, not because it's simply another Halloween song. It is officially Archive Spotlight #1. So thank you for joining me for this very first Archive Spotlight. If this episode introduced you to a Halloween song you've never heard before, or inspired you to dust off an old favorite, we've accomplished what we set out to do exactly. Preserving Halloween isn't just about remembering the past. It's about making sure these stories and these traditions and these remarkable pieces of history continue finding new listeners for generations to come. The Haunted House of Rock isn't simply a novelty Halloween song. It's a snapshot of a moment when hip-hop was still defining itself and artists weren't afraid to experiment. While so many Halloween records look backward to haunted houses, monsters, and old horror films through rock and novelty music, Whodini showed there was room for an entirely new voice in Halloween's soundtrack. And more than 40 years later, this record still sounds playful, imaginative, and unmistakably Halloween. It reminds us that preserving Halloween isn't just about remembering the traditions everyone knows. It's also about rescuing the overlooked records, forgotten artists, and unexpected stories that help shape the holiday's culture. Because if we don't remember songs like The Haunted House of Rock, there's a chance they disappear from Halloween history altogether, and that's exactly why they've earned a place here, preserved in the archive. Until next time, stay strange, stay curious, stay spooky, and always preserve Halloween.